Come, Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the watchdog trusts.
Calls and conversations continue in less than 3 minutes as the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues after this.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. Beware of telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you. Callers threatening you with arrest or other legal action and demanding money are not from us. If you receive a call like this, hang up, do not provide them with any form of payment or information. Report the call at oig.ssa.gov.
Hey man, what can I get you?
Yeah, can I have 2 Coors Lights?
You got it. Hey Mike! I need 2 Coors Lights!
Sure thing.
With a taste as cold as the Rockies, only Coors Light gives you refreshment every time.
Here you go.
Thanks, Mike. Doing a great job. All right, 2 ice-cold Coors Lights.
That's the coldest beer I've ever had.
Hey, they don't call it the world's most refreshing beer for nothing.
Okay, be honest with me. Do you really have the Rocky Mountains in your beer cooler?
You don't believe it? Check it out.
Man, that's pretty amazing.
I know, right? I can't believe it myself sometimes. I mean, this cooler is only 3 feet wide.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. With great beer comes great responsibility.
Fallensby, West Virginia, get ready, because on Saturday, July 31st, live from the Blue Wave Center, NCW Wrestling presents Night of Superstars, featuring former WWE superstars Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, Eric Rowan, Connor and Victor of the Ascension, and much, much more. Tickets are available right now at NationalChampionshipWrestling.com.
Now at Menards, save big money in your next project with 11% off everything. Turtle Wax Hybrid Ceramic Spray is the fastest way to an amazing shine. Just wash your car, spray it on, and wipe dry. Get durable protection and superior shine with 11% off all Turtle Wax products. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through July 24th. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
From the Watchdog, here is your local weather forecast for your start to the work week. Mostly sunny with a few clouds later in the day, high of 84. Tonight, clear skies and a low of 63. And for your Tuesday, expect mostly sunny skies with a high of 86. And that's your local weather forecast from the Watchdog.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Celebrating the 100 days of summer, this is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
And temperature moving up a little bit, 63 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 62 degrees here at my home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling, 62 at the Robinson Auto Group Studios downtown Wheeling. In the heart of the Ohio Valley, we are going to see, it's foggy outside right now. When the fog burns off, a little overcast too, but it's going to be turn out to be a sunny day, I think. That's what Zach is telling us anyway, from the Big 7. And no rain, which is also a very good thing. So today's going to be our best day of the week this week. A couple of items off the text line. If you want to text me, 304-214-1600, 304-214-1600. Let's see. Yeah, well, I said this weekend I had dental surgery on Friday, so I just kind of lounged on the couch and watched TV, and I turned on West Wing on Friday and didn't turn it off until last night when I went to bed because I just keep watching and watching and watching. I do that all the time with West Wing. So Howard says he stayed home all weekend and watched TV to get his teeth worked on Friday. Explain how that's any different than any other weekend Howard has had in the last 2 years. except for the few days going swimming at his son's house. You've had the same weekend for at least 2 years. Yeah. Yes. Most every this weekend was my teeth were hurting. Okay. We talked last hour about the Black National Anthem going to continue to be played at NFL games this year. The NFL says they're going to continue their social justice approach. They're going to continue to have anti-racism messages over the public address system. They're going to continue to have the decals on helmets. They're going to continue to fund anti-racism efforts and so on. 60% of the NFL players are black. None of the owners are. And they want to focus on the concerns of their players, of their employees, so to speak. And I think it's a good idea. I wonder about playing the Black National Anthem at every game. I think it makes sense to play it at key events or key times, but I don't know that it needs to be every game. But already getting backlash. The NFL is already getting backlash for saying that. And they did last year, too. People said, well, I'm not going to ever watch the NFL again. I said last hour, Biff, that I think people will say that, and they may do it for a while, but I think in the end, if you like watching the NFL, you'll keep on watching the NFL. However, I got this text, and I have to respect it. Howard, since kneeling during the national anthem has occurred, I refuse to watch any and all NFL games. I am a proud veteran, along with my son, my father, many others before him. I just refuse to continue to watch anything that supports anything such as these actions. I'm always intrigued by why. I mean, I respect that. I respect it. That's your choice. But I'm always questioning why. I don't think that kneeling is disrespecting the flag. It is kneeling to acknowledge other issues. But anyway, I get your point, and I appreciate that. On the other hand, I get this one. Now I lost it now. This is one of those ones that, oh, here we go. Howard, Black Lives Matter, defund the police, racism. I'm sick of hearing about this every hour of every day. I would bet everything I have in my pocket that you're a white person. And therefore you don't care about Black Lives Matter, or defunding the police, or racism. You don't care about the concerns that affect a community that isn't yours. And that's easy for any of us to do. I was thinking last night a lot about how difficult it is for me with my white privilege. Look, I am the prototype. I'm a WASP. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It's hard for me to step out of my life and look at the life of someone who is poor or someone who is of color. But I have to do that. We all have to do that. So I don't know. Black Lives Matter, defund the police, racism. So sick of hearing about this every hour of every day. Well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Howard, where is West Wing housed now? Do you mean where is it? Where can you find it online? It's HBO Max, actually. If that's the question, if I understand the question, it's on HBO Max. Howard, how did the dental appointment go? Actually went very well. I was sent to a periodontist up in Canonsburg, and she was absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I mean, I couldn't say enough about her. And she really was concerned about how much pain I was in, or if I was in pain. Anytime I give a slight, when they were doing some work in there, she just shoot more Novocaine at me. So it went very well. They pulled a number of teeth. They did some planing and scaling. I have a little bit more work that's got to be done here locally. But actually it went very well. Thank you for asking. I was out of action for all day Friday and a good bit of Saturday. I just was in a little leftover pain and bleeding and other kind of stuff. Anyways, those are a few things off the text line. You can text me anytime you'd like to, 304-214-1600, 304-214-1600, the Watchdog Radio Network text line. Just making sure, I think I've got all the current ones up there. If you want to text me, feel free to do so, and we can. 8:16, a little behind time here. This weekend, the Kentucky, I guess Friday actually, the Kentucky Public Service Commission accepted a plan that would keep the Mitchell Power Plant in Marshall County open until 2028. American Electric Power, through its subsidiaries Wheeling Power and Kentucky Power, made separate filings to the PSCs of each of those two states. Wheeling Power and Kentucky Power each own 50% stake in the Mitchell plant. Wheeling Power made its case back in June before the West Virginia PSC. They have not yet had a ruling, but the Kentucky PSC ruled this weekend. Kentucky's, the AEP offered two plans, as you probably know, we've talked about them. One plan would allow the plant to stay open until 2040, would require additional investment in some additional environmental precautions and preparations and so on. That would cost a lot more, but it would stay open until 2040. The other plan would cost less. I think the plan to keep it open until 2040 would cost $133 million. The plan to keep it open until 2028 would cost $35 million, but it only keeps it open until 2028. So, the Kentucky PSC authorized the company to go with the second plan, keeping it open until 2028. Again, the West Virginia PSC has not yet ruled on it. A lot of local folks, elected officials, politicians, concerned citizens have been trying to keep the plant open longer. WVU report on the economic impact of coal and coal-fired power generation in West Virginia said that Mitchell produces more than 5 million in total megawatt power generation. The direct economic impact in Marshall County said to be $418 million. Closing the plant would mean the end of more than 660 jobs, $65 million in employee wages would go by the wayside. Additionally, there are taxes that are paid in Marshall County and elsewhere that would go away if the plant goes out of business. Again, 2028 is not that far away. 2040 is farther away, although there is a part of me that says 2040 just delays the inevitable. Because the bigger question I think we have to ask is, like it or not, and I know some of you don't want to hear me even say this, and some of you ignore it, coal's position in energy generation is rapidly diminishing. And coal-fired power plants are becoming a thing of the past. So whether it's 2028 or 2040, and now it looks like 2028, what's the alternative? Are there options? How does an economy that has $419 million of economic impact coming from this one plant recoup that, or can it? I invited Sean O'Leary to come here with us today. He's from the Ohio River Valley Institute, one of their researchers. He actually testified before the West Virginia PSC on this issue, and I thought we'd talk about what Sean thinks and what he said to the PSC was the best alternative, the best choice of those two plans, and also what's the alternative. Sean, thanks for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Howard. Thank you very much for having me on.
Have I outlined this reasonably well, given the basic background here?
Well, yes, you did. The only thing that I would add to what you said is that, as you pointed out, the West Virginia PSC has yet to rule, but it is much harder now to figure out a way in which, even if the PSC were to rule in favor of the plan that would keep Mitchell open until 2040, even if that were to happen, there would have to be some serious machinations in order to actually keep the plant open until 2040, because of the Kentucky PSC action. Kentucky Power will not be able to recover any of the costs for those additional upgrades in the state of Kentucky. And for that,
I'm not sure what would happen, but theoretically, I guess you'd have to double the planned increase in West Virginia, right, in order to accommodate the fact that you couldn't do it in Kentucky. I'm just speculating.
Well, you would either have to do that. There is another route to it, which is that the Kentucky Power's 50% share could be sold to, Wheeling or Appalachian Power companies. But there would have to be some significant corporate finance issues going on here in order to make it work without Kentucky's approval. So that's the only thing that I would add. But I'm very, very grateful for your point about the need to pay attention and to ask the question, what are the alternatives? Because, as you may know, and as you pointed out, I testified in the PSC case in West Virginia. And when it came time for cross-examination, there were exactly 0 questions about my testimony. in 2 days of hearings where, I don't know, a dozen different witnesses testified, some of them for more than an hour, I was the only witness who was not asked any questions whatsoever by any of the parties or by any of the commissioners. And, I was asked why by a reporter for the Charleston Gazette, Mike Toney, and I told him quite frankly, it's because I don't think folks thought it was very important until now. And what has happened is, of course, I'm now on your show, and Mike Toney of the Charleston Gazette just released a story this morning about the testimony, because sadly, it does seem to be about the only suggestion of an alternative that's out there. And, to your listeners, that's the first thing that I would say is critical, is that we need leaders at the county level, at the state level, and elsewhere to begin thinking about this, because as you pointed out, coal plants are shutting down, and they're shutting down rapidly. It's not just Mitchell, and it's not just Moundsville and the Ohio Valley. This is all over the region. And so I'm really grateful that you're shining a light on this issue and, frankly, helping to make people aware that there are alternatives.
Sean,
and that was what I presented.
There's a bigger issue that I've been trying to get us to talk about a lot here in the Ohio Valley. Everybody wants to support coal and coal miners, and I don't want to see coal miners unemployed or anybody else unemployed. But at some point, we have got to accept the reality that coal, as an energy source, there are some other uses for coal, but as an energy source, coal is simply, I hate to say, it's on its way out. It's not done, it's not gone, it's not disappeared, but it's on its way out. Power plants are simply choosing a smarter, cheaper way to do business. And, you can't, I sometimes think we're like the blacksmiths who are trying to stop the horseless carriage from coming along. You just can't stop progress or change.
No, that's a perfect analogy. And yes, you are right. For economic reasons, the coal-fired power is frankly no longer cost competitive in the market. It's why no more coal-fired power plants are being built. No one wants to invest in such a technology. And the ones that exist are very, very expensive to run. Plus, they obviously have a whole lot of health and environmental complications that go with them. But I think the most important thing for people to realize is that there is in the valley, I'm not just talking about generally in the American economy, but there is in the valley a future without coal. And, and I should emphasize, though, coal is not going to go away because of the shutdown of the Mitchell Power Plant. In fact, the Mitchell Power Plant is not going to use very much coal going forward anyway. You mentioned that there was an economic impact study that was done by John Deskins at WVU that was presented before the Public Service Commission. And you cited a number of statistics about what the contribution economically of the plant is. What was not mentioned then, and you didn't mention, is that study was based on Mitchell's level of operations in 2019. And even American Electric Power's own forecasts for the future suggests that even if Mitchell is kept open, it will not operate at nearly that level going forward. Already in the utility industry, utilization rates are referred to as capacity factors. Usually, coal-fired power plants run at utilization rates or capacity factors of about 80%. Because of the economic factors that you were alluding to, in 2019, Mitchell was already down to less than 40%. And it's because people didn't want to buy expensive power from there. They only bought it when they absolutely had to. And as more resources, both natural gas and renewable energy, comes online, the need for power, the market for Mitchell power, is only going to shrink even further. And of course, and one of the scenarios that American Electric Power is thinking about implementing at Mitchell, if it stays open, that it would become what is called a capacity resource that would only run briefly for perhaps a couple of months a year. Again, because there are only a couple of months a year when anybody would be willing to buy its power. And so its level of operation would be reduced, so would its consumption of coal, and so would the hours that people work there. In other words, if Mitchell were to stay open, by the time, the end of this decade rolls around, and probably sooner, it would be operating for the last decade of its life until 2040 as a shell of its former self. In other words, to be honest with you, from an economic standpoint and from the standpoint of the contribution to the economy, there is not much significant difference between Mitchell retiring in 2028 or staying open until 2040, because in the period following 2028, it would be running at such a reduced level that it would have virtually no economic impact anyway.
Congressman McKinley on Friday, after the announcement from the Kentucky PSC, accused the Kentucky Public Service Commission of, quote, turning its back on coal. He says any rate increases needed to keep the Mitchell plant open pale in comparison to the economic devastation that will come with the plant's premature closure. I would take note, first of all, that statement only looks at the dollars and cents of it, not the actual reality of the continued use of coal. It may well be true that any rate increases would are not equal to the amount of income that we're getting, but it doesn't take into effect the fact that coal is simply eventually vanishing. I remember sitting in a speech given by, and I forget his name, but he was one of the vice president's top executives of AEP a number of years ago. And he said quite clearly, he said, let me be as clear as I can. There never again will be another coal-fired power plant built, period. It's just the time has come and the time has gone. And forget the dollars and cents. At some point, we've just got to accept the reality of what's happening out here. At least that's my opinion.
Howard, not only do we need to accept it, and this is where I'd like to pivot to what the alternative is, I would argue that the best thing that we can do economically for job creation, for economic activity, is actually to embrace it. Because in my testimony before the PSC, I presented the story of a coal town that looks for all the world like Moundsville. The coal town happens to be in Washington State, which will strike people as being a little weird because you don't think of the Pacific Northwest as coal town. But the population it's a town and a surrounding county called Centralia, Washington. And let me tell you what the similarities are between that place and not just Moundsville, but Marshall, Ohio, and Wetzel counties. Both of them have populations of between 80 and 90,000 people when you add them all together. Both of them are coal towns in the sense that Centralia's biggest employer for decades was a coal mine, employed over 600 people. Its second biggest employer is a coal-fired power plant, which happens to be the same size as Mitchell, happens to employ the same number of people, and which was also started. It went online in 1971, like Mitchell did. And Centralia is a very isolated place. It's 90 miles from both Portland and Seattle. It's not in any major metropolitan area. In fact, it's farther from a metropolitan area than Moundsville and Wheeling are in their proximity to Pittsburgh and even Columbus. And so the coal mine was shut down. They already took that economic hit. And I should also add that Centralia had a chronic unemployment problem, even worse than in the valley. It almost, for decades, unemployment there has been 2.5 points higher than the national average. This was not a thriving place. And, you know, I've been there. If you were to drive there, folks from the Ohio Valley and the Mon Valley could drive through Centralia, and they would see a pretty familiar scenario with storefronts and buildings, except in the downtown, and except something else. There's work going on all over town. And
Why?
the reason for that is that at the time it was announced that the power plant would be shut down, and it's now one of the units there is already shut down. The other one's in the process of being shut down. The company that owned the power plant and the coal mine committed to a $55 million economic transition plan from which grants are being made by a board, a local board, for the purposes primarily of energy efficiency, education, and infrastructure locally in town and around the region. And in the 4 years since that plan went into place and those grants started being dispersed, Centralia, despite the loss of the coal mine, despite the loss of one operating unit, the power plant, with the other on the way out, saw its economy grow at twice the rate of the nation, and more importantly, it saw its job count grow at twice the rate of the nation. That relatively little town that only had 24,000 jobs to begin with, in 4 years added 2,800 new jobs.
But how? What kind of jobs? What did they do?
The biggest areas, the biggest winners were in construction, and particularly what the Bureau of Economic Analysis classifies as specialty construction, which includes energy efficiency-related things like heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, insulation, home remodeling, all of those things that, when you think about it, are provided by local contractors. What happened in Centralia is that it's not just that they got $55 million for transition. It's that whether by accident or by design, the board there decided to invest heavily in embracing clean energy, including energy efficiency. And so what happens when you do energy efficiency? It's those things I talked about. It's stuff that's done by local contractors, you know, HVAC contractors, lighting and heating, the door and window people in the area, home remodelers. Those are all local businesses. And so most of the money didn't only get spent on these upgrades, but it gets compounded because it goes to local contractors. Local contractors hire more people. And when they hire more people, those are local people who then in turn spend their money in the economy. They do all the things that John Deskins in his WVU study about Mitchell talked about, you know, the economic impact of Mitchell and the wave or the ripples of economic activity that go through the state. That's exactly what they triggered in a really big way in Centralia. And
Sean,
so they saw a huge...
Was it
Go
a
ahead.
shot in the arm? You know, kind of a one-time infusion of all of this stuff, building and construction, or did it create ongoing jobs of some substance for the community?
Well, it's the latter, and for two reasons. First of all, the grants are being dispersed over a 10-year period. So they haven't even dispersed half the money yet. The second part of it, though, and this is the really important part, is that the activities that they're funding, all of this energy efficiency and education, these are investments that have annuity benefits. And by annuity benefits, what I mean is that when you do energy efficiency upgrades, you reduce people's utility bills, their gas bills, their electric bills. And because of that, these upgrades are actually paying for themselves. Right now, when you, and I actually did an analysis of this in Marshall, Ohio, and Wetzel counties. If you were to take, there are 35,000 in round number households in the three counties. If you were to improve energy efficiency there by 20%, which is entirely conceivable, and which would only bring those three counties in line with the national average, you would save $8 million a year collectively on people's electric bills. And that money means more disposable income for residents. And again, and that's ongoing. I mean, once you implement energy efficiency savings, that's basically permanent. It goes on for decades. And so what you've done is basically create an ongoing fund that puts, as I said, something on the order of $8 million in the pockets of local residents that they spend in the local economy for years and decades to come.
The funding for this, though, Sean, the funding for this, you said, came all from the power company. Is that correct?
Yep. And
so this was there was no state dollars involved or federal dollars involved.
None whatsoever. And when you think about it, $55 million isn't that much money. But more to the point, let me tell you where that money could come from at Mitchell if it were to be retired. You pointed out in your introduction that the two plans that were considered, one of them to keep the plant open until 2040 would cost about $133 million in upgrades. But if they were only to keep the plant open until 2028, they would only have to spend about $35 million in upgrades. That means that there's $98 million in savings hanging out there. It would be eminently possible for the Public Service Commission and for American Electric Power, the parent company that ultimately owns Mitchell, to work out a deal in which a substantial portion of that $98 million in savings that AEP will realize could be devoted to a Centralia-scale economic transition plan. In other words, the money is there.
I asked about state or federal money because in West Virginia, the approach over the last several years has been to simply pay power companies to stay in business even when they don't want to. We gave that huge amount of money to, was it Point Pleasant, I think. The technique is we'll make you stay open. We'll pay you to stay open. We'll create mandates you have to stay open, even though it isn't the most economically feasible for you. But we'll just keep on paying you to produce coal. I mean, that's been the approach
Howard,
that the legislature's done.
It's not only economic infeasible. Did you realize, I don't know how well known this is, I've published it in a blog post in a couple of places, but do you realize that over the last decade, West Virginia has the fastest rising electric bills in the nation? And
I did not know that, no.
It's not close. West Virginia is by far has the fastest rising monthly utility bills in the nation. And that's the price West Virginians are paying for it. You may not be getting a tax bill from the state government for it, but you're paying a tax for that kind of behavior every month when you pay your gas and electric bills. And
Sean, I'm running short on time. I'll give you a chance to make any final point you want to make, but then I have to move on. It's been good conversation, but any last point you want to make about this?
Yeah, just one thing. We're the Ohio River Valley Institute, where I work, tomorrow at 10 a.m., we're going to be releasing a new report that is based on the testimony that I gave before the West Virginia PSC. I hope folks will, check out our website. We're holding a news conference. I hope that many, many reporters from around the region will be there, but the story will get told in much greater detail. And if anybody would like to see the report, just have them get in touch with me, and we'll be happy to provide them with a copy.
And the website is simply Ohio River Valley Institute .com.org.
.org.
.org. Ohio River Valley Institute.org. All right. Sean, I hate to cut you short, but it's a good conversation. I appreciate it as always. I have to move on. Thank you for your expert thoughts on this. Always appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Howard. Bye-bye.
Sean O'Leary from the Ohio River Valley Institute. The Mitchell plant seems to be closer and closer to closing in 2028. At some point, we've got to begin to acknowledge these things are going to happen. What do we do now? What I'm going to do now, I told Biff during one of the breaks, I had this show so well planned out. That my timing, I thought I got my teeth fixed. I'm going to start a whole new career of staying on time. I was screwed up by 7:20, and I'm really screwed up right now. But let's take a quick break. We'll check some headlines, and we'll check some sports, and a little bit of business. I do have open phone lines for this little segment of the show. If you want to use them at 304-232-8255, 304-232-TALK. Your lines are open and available. The CityNet hotline, or you can continue to text me if you'd like to, 304-214-1600. We are the Watchdog Morning Show here on WKKX and WVOY.
The WTRF Channel 7 News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
Now it's time for your local news headline.
Metro News Sports, good morning. I'm Kyle Wiggs in Charleston covering TBT, where it's date.
A text from Bob. He's going to call in.
That and West Virginia will be in action. Heard that? The number 3 seed will play tonight at 7 o'clock against Team 23. And the winners of these semifinal round games will advance to Wednesday night's bracket final and potentially, heard that, could meet up against West Virginia. West Virginia will play a team of former Division II players tonight at 9 o'clock. So again, West Virginia, the number 2 seed, heard that, the number 3 seed. If both win tonight, they will advance to the bracket championship game on Wednesday. We'll have play-by-play coverage of both of these games from TBT tonight on the Metro News Radio Network starting at 7, following the sports line. Again, heard that against Team 23 at 7 o'clock. West Virginia against D2 coming up. Ready. The Buccaneers hit 13 three-pointers. Armored Athlete beat HBC 88-52, and the number 1 seed Sideline Cancer beat Founding Fathers 277. You're listening to Metro News, the voice of West Virginia. Major League Baseball from Sunday. Among the games, the Mets scored 2 in the ninth on a Michael Conforto home run, and the Mets beat the Pirates by a final of 7-6. The first-place Brewers completed a sweep of the Reds, winning 8-0 behind Corbin Burns on Sunday, and Baltimore beat Kansas City. That final was 5-0. Colin Morikawa won the British Open Championship on Sunday. From the Metro News Sports Desk, I'm Kyle Wiggs.
You know, there's variety shows, and then there's, well, my variety show. I'm Bill DeFabio, and I bring you the best variety talk in the Ohio Valley, quite possibly the world. Join me from noon till 2 to talk sports, nostalgia, and hear from some of the legends of the game. You won't believe who I have on next. The Bill DeFabio Variety Show, noon till 2 on the Watchdog.
Does your dog need groomed or walked? Are you looking for a pet sitter or dog boarding options? If so, call Dirty Paws, Wheeling's newest pet care service, providing the Ohio Valley with everyone's pet care needs. Check us out on Facebook at Dirty Paws WHG or call 304-639-7754.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
African Safari Wildlife Park, the Midwest's only drive-through safari park, is home to many animals from around the world. Feed the animals up close and personal from the comfort of your own vehicle. Stroll the walkthrough with its many exciting animals on exhibit and enjoy educational animal programs. Visit the gift shop for souvenirs, food, and cold drinks. Don't miss out on the fun and family adventure and the unbeatable photo opportunities at African Safari Wildlife Park, located in Port Clinton, Ohio. For more details, visit AfricanSafariWildlifePark.com.
Attorney Tom McIntyre.
Life. It may knock you down, but you don't have to stay that way. I'm Tom McIntyre. I'm a bankruptcy attorney, and I'm here to help you. Give us a call, and we'll send you a copy of my free book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. It's an interesting read, and it book does. Give us a call. We're here to help.
Call Thomas E. McIntyre and Associates at 304-232-8600. Allow us to help put you back on the road to financial success.
I'm not buying till I checked on Ford.
Most of us are faced with uncertainty every day. Your job, your finances, sporting events, schooling for your children, and so much more. With so much uncertainty surrounding you, there is one auto dealership that you can be certain about, and that's Doan Ford. You can be certain that you always get a great deal and the best service afterwards. Being in business for over 50 years has given Doan Ford the reputation of being a strong, reliable dealership. Be certain. Choose Doan Ford. Online at DoanFord.com.
I'm not buying till I check Doan Ford.
The Pro Football Hall of Fame wraps up the greatest enshrinement week ever with the concert event of the summer. When Brad Paisley and Leonard Skinner headline the Concert for Legends, Monday, August 9th at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton. Tickets for this one-of-a-kind concert experience are on sale now at ProFootballHOF.com. Brad Paisley, I'm gonna miss her. Leonard Skinner sharing the stage for the first time ever in Canton, Monday, August 9th. Get your tickets at ProFootballHOF.com.
It may be hot right.
Okie doke, thank you.
Keep your lawn and plants looking their best at Driveway Sealer for that last summer project. And if you're ahead of schedule on your projects, you can get started on fall by pre-booking wood pellets and stocking up on bedding. Get everything you need for your last summer projects and get started on your fall ones at Rural King, America's farm and home store.
This is the sound of a popular American motorcycle. It's the sound of freedom, the open road, really good times. And this is what it sounds like with a drunk guy in it. How do you like the sound of that? Cops are cracking down on drunk motorcycle riders. If you ride drunk, you will get caught and you will get arrested. Drunk riding. Over the limit, under arrest. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Hi, it's Tony Caridi, host of the CityNet Statewide Sports Line right here on Metro News. Join the Senator, Brad Howe, Coach Greg Hunter, and myself as we discuss the day's biggest sports stories, talking with coaches, former players, and sports writers from all over the state and across the nation, bringing you the latest from the high schools, colleges, and the pro game. So don't miss the CityNet Statewide Sports Line weeknights at 6:06 here on the Metro News Radio Network and streaming live at WVMetronews.com.
Watch out! He could climb on his soapbox at any time. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
"63 degrees, Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 62 degrees at my home studio, 62 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group Studios, downtown Wheeling, in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Next hour, talk about no one wants to take jobs anymore. I got some facts and figures that belie that a little bit, and we'll talk about that next hour. Right now, I do have phone lines open, 304-232-8255. Let's see what Bob's got to say this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Howard, or should I say good morning, Gabby Hayes.
Well, come on now.
How in the world are you going to be able to enjoy Sons of Italy, Italian sausage, piled up with the peppers and the onions, just the way you like it? How in the world are you going to be able to eat that, Howard?
I don't know.
You don't want to talk about it, do you?
I'll try to figure out a way. If I can do it on the side over here like this, stay away from our front. Maybe. To see.
Well, if I was you, I'd have Nancy brush up on the Heimlich maneuver if you're going to go down that road.
It's probably true.
Hey, before we talk about the two national anthems, did you notice that the newspaper increased by a quarter again?
I did not, no, I didn't.
I'm pretty sure this time last year, or maybe closer to spring, the daily newspaper was 50 cents. It is now $1.25.
You mean to go to a machine and buy the daily paper, you got to put $1.25 in?
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
Wow.
And it was funny because Friday you and Biff were talking about how things appear to be getting smaller, but the price is even more. And that's a perfect example right there. I don't know what their thinking is. The whole thing about the weekend, the Sunday paper out on Saturday, you get the Sunday paper, well, it's actually Friday's news. I mean, it's just bizarre. I just don't understand the newspaper business anymore.
Well, I mean, let's be honest about it. The newspaper business is having not just locally, it's having a really difficult time financially, and they're struggling to try and find a way to monetize that works. Advertising is down because circulation is down, therefore advertising is down. They got to compensate for it somewhere, so they're increasing the price. I didn't realize it, but I pay for my paper. I don't want anyone to misunderstand that, but it just automatically is deducted from our account, and I read it online, so I don't ever go to a machine. I know you do all the time. So I had no idea what it was cost. Honestly, if you had asked me what's the cost of a newspaper today, I would have said 50 cents.
Well, there you go. That's why I'm glad I brought it up. And all that stuff that you said is important to the Nuttings, but the most important thing you didn't mention, and that's a profit. So yes. I just wonder, just all that. Here's the thing, and I'm totally serious. I think a great segment to your show right after the weather with Zach is, let's take a look at the folks that weather doesn't mean anything to, the people that croaked, the people that are dead. And you and Biff maybe read a list of the people that died, so I don't have to give them $1.25 every day just to see if any of my friends or acquaintances have died over the weekend, Howard. And I'm totally serious. You could get a sponsor for that.
We used to do, didn't we used to do that, Biffy? Do the obituaries here?
Todd Jeffers.
Yeah, Todd did way back when.
Yeah, and again, that's why I buy that newspaper, because I don't want to miss out on, well, no, I didn't know so-and-so died last week. Hell, I didn't know. And that's a shame. That's what it's come down to.
Let's be honest about it. We are, at least I am, and you're getting close to the point where it's happening more frequently.
Well, right. Yeah, so you want to try to stay up on that. That's why I'm serious. I think that would be a great addition to your show, let's take a look at the people that are dead. You know, the people that didn't make it or whatever. You know, just say these people are dead.
The most embarrassing thing in the world is to see an old friend on the street and you say, "Hey, Sam, how are you? Hey, how's your dad doing?" He's dead.
Right.
Oh.
Right. I mean, it's just that's about my only way of, unless you run into somebody on the street and they say, "Hey, did you hear about Sam?" Well, no, I usually get that news in the paper, but I'm not going to give him $1.25 every day for that.
I would tell you to go check online at the funeral homes. You know, they have those on the funeral homes, but you're not big online.
I'll just take a ride down Kruger Street and I'll make a couple stops and I'll just see who's on their roster for the next couple of days. How's that?
You'd be one of those guys who just drop in. I like it. Just drop into each of the funeral homes and check and see who's there.
Yeah,
who you got today?
Who you got this evening? All right. I'll see you later. That's what it's going to come down to.
That's
and lastly, Howard, real quick, my phone's telling me it's about ready to go dead. You know, I don't know how you become one and then say, well, we need two of this, and two of this. That's the only beef I have. Is, you know, why do you need that? I mean, I just don't understand it.
You're talking the Black National Anthem.
Right. That's where I'm going here. And you know what? I'm no Joe Manchin, but how about a compromise like this? I think the best rendition of yeah, there you go, is Whitney Houston.
Mm-hmm.
An African American. Play that every time. I think the best rendition of America the Beautiful is Ray Charles. Play that every single time. Every single time. That's it. That's what you get because I think it's the best. There you go. Why would you need another separate national anthem? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah,
it's almost like a country that's communist. Joel, we're going to play this one over here, but then they'll stand up because we're going to play this one over here.
Yeah, I'm not going to go that far, but I'm not fully sure why we have to have two. I understand that in the African American community, that song has special meaning to them, and on special occasions, whatever that might mean, I get that you might want to play it, but I don't see why you have to have. And I know I'll get in trouble for this, but I don't see why you have to have two national anthems all the time. I mean, there is a national anthem.
And doesn't that divide the country even more? Well, this is mine, this is yours. Yeah, I thought that's what we were trying to eliminate.
There's value in what you say. I can't disagree. And again, if you want to say, I know this is important to certain parts of our players, part of our constituents, we're going to take note of it on occasion. But I don't know that it needs to replace or even be side by side with the national anthem. I don't disagree with you, Bob.
All right, Gabby, give me a call when you heal up. We'll try to eat something.
All right, thanks a lot.
See you.
9 o'clock on the Watchdog Morning Show. Got a lot of stuff I haven't gotten into yet because I've been so far behind time. I got a bunch of things to get to. I'll take more of your calls, too, coming up at 304-232-8255, or your texts if you would like to. But right now, ABC covers the world.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
The Biden administration.